Hello fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to this video on the astrology of choosing good dates for cosmetic surgery and tattoos. This is a really good time to talk about it. I've been asked about it in light of the fact that I am recording this during a Venus retrograde season. And Venus retrograde, Venus has to do with beauty and beautifying yourself. And one way in which people like to beautify themselves does have to do with making permanent alterations to, or semi-permanent sometimes, to their physical appearance. That's one way that we do it. Another way we do it is happiness. I think that's a big way. That happiness is a huge way that beauty happens. Now, during a Venus retrograde, Venus is goddess of love and beauty, representative in the sky. And during a Venus retrograde, it is the happiness part. It is the inward, more reflective part that we want to pay attention to, because that is where the most gains are going to be made. And also what can happen with Venus retrograde is the outcomes we get in our beautifying efforts are not either, if we love them right away, they don't last as long as we hope, or we change our mind. That tends to be one of the big symbolisms, because if you think about it, what's happening during a Venus retrograde is Venus appears to be going backwards in the sky. She appears to be becoming more reflective. And when Venus is backwards, she is said to not be, full force, going forward, strong, straight ahead. And that's what you want. You want a strong Venus, especially where it comes to beautifying things you're going to do that just are you're hoping to last. Now you add to this the element that with the Venus retrograde, once that Venus goes direct especially, things can be very different. Whether it's what you want or the results can end up being very different than you expect. And if it's something that you've been doing for a long time, some people say that, sure, if it's just a routine, upkeep or whatever, it's okay. But I have found that, even then you just want to be a little bit careful, because, for example, if you always get tattoos, if tattoos are your thing and you get tattoos and you get one during a Venus retrograde, it may heal a little bit different. The colors may look a little bit different than you expected them to, even if you go to the same person. They say that, and I've heard it said that Venus retrograde can be good for a touch-up, to go back and do things over. I would say still, be a little bit mindful with that too, because you want strong, solid results is what you're going for. And so if you can help it, wait. Venus retros about once every year and a half or so. It tends to last a couple of months between the shadow and the retro and the direct. And so it really is not that long in the fullness of time, especially for something that you hope will last. So what kind of sky do you want in order for strong results? So a couple of things here. Now, first and foremost, I'm going to say one theory, there's like this whole school of astrology called medical astrology, and they specifically look at like the best days for surgery, for example. And there's a lot of techniques out there, but one very basic thing that you can use, like sort of one rule of thumb, if you will, is it's a good idea not to operate on parts of the body that are represented by the sign that the moon is in. So every sign covers a different area of your body, a different part of your body. And what you want to do is, if you are going to have a procedure, especially if it is anything invasive, if it involves needles or anything of that sort, ideally you don't want the moon to be in the same part of the sky is represented by that part of the body. So here's some examples. Now this does involve maybe having an astrology calendar or looking up the moon sign at any given time when you're planning a particular procedure. But as a general overview, generally things like your face, your face normally from your scalp, covered by Aries very strongly, especially the eyes are covered by Aries. For the rest of the face and the throat is Taurus. Your arms, your shoulders is Gemini. So if the moon is in Gemini and you are wanting a tattoo on your arm, if it were me, I would wait until the moon was in a different sign. Now, Cancer is the breasts and stomach. Virgo, or rather Leo, is the heart, okay? Virgo has to do with the intestines, sort of the lower body. The Libra has to do with the lumbar region. Scorpio is elimination. It also has to do with testing and sexual organs. Sagittarius is your thighs and your butt too, right? The more the outward part of it. And Capricorn is your knees and your bones generally. Also, Aquarius is your ankles, Pisces is your feet. Now, the skin, there's a couple of theories to this. Capricorn and Libra generally are thought to represent the skin, those two. Libra more for beautifying the skin. I would say Taurus as well. And skin in terms of containment is a lot more, is also having to do with the sign of Capricorn. So where it comes to beautifying different parts of your body or doing procedures from tattoos to whatever else it is that you would like, right? It's one life, whatever it is, more power to you. But you want to observe the moon or just kind of know where the moon is on a given day so that ideally you want to avoid operating on a particular part of the body during the moon in that part of the sky that represents that part of the body. Venus, you want a good, strong Venus. So what makes a strong Venus? Venus speaking harmoniously to the moon is good. And that becomes a little bit more specific, right? That has more to do with what is happening with the moon moving really fast. That can change day to day. But having said that, if we're looking at larger transits, Venus speaking harmoniously with other power players is always a good thing where it comes to the type of results that you want. If you want results that are really regenerative, right? Like something that you really hope will help you to feel a new lease, then, and it involves, especially if it involves any kind of needles or things like that, surgery, Venus speaking in harmony to Pluto is really good. So Venus in trine or sextile to Pluto is really good. If it's something very, very experimental, then you could have Venus speaking with Uranus or Mercury as a supportive element. Now, speaking with Mars, that can have a very youthifying effect, right? I think I just coined that word, but that can be very, make you look younger if that's what you're going for. But I think Mercury is also really good for that as well. So if Venus and Mercury are speaking in supreme harmony, it's a type of conversation astrologers call a trine in particular, or with Mars as well, then those can be really good for anything you want to do to look younger, which is more power to you, whatever it is. We can say a lot about accept yourself, love yourself, and own your beauty. And that's a part of it. Absolutely, it's a part of it. But I also think that at the end of the day, it's you that has to be at peace with yourself, and it's you that has to, it's like this balance, right? The peace with yourself is an inside job, but also if you feel like you want to do something, like I like to say, it's just hair when it's not, right? When it's like surgery or something. So these are the things you want. Now, if it's something that you hope will have lasting results, then Saturn is also a good bet as well. And I actually think that when Venus speaks with Saturn, that can be really good for skin treatments as well. Neptune also, but Neptune, the results don't always last. Now, if you know your own chart, then a good one way to watch, now all else being equal, of course, right? If you have some difficult transits taking place to your ascendant, and then Venus comes along and moves over that ascendant, you have to look at those transits because the ascendant is your appearance. It's how you are viewed. And so you want some positive connections being made to that ascendant by Venus or Jupiter for that matter, or Neptune can lend themselves to some really, especially if it's glamour oriented, can lend themselves to good results. but you want to make sure and look at what other transits are happening there. Because like, for example, I remember Venus was going to conjunct my sun. And so I decided that I wanted to get a different hair color. I was very excited about this, and it was dramatically different than what I normally had at the time. But of course, and this is way back in the day, of course, I didn't realize that my sun squares Uranus. And so Venus did conjunct my sun, but it also squared my Uranus. And so I changed the color and people reacted, and that was great. But then after a day, I was done. I was like, oh my God, what did I do? I don't want this, because it's a change ultimately that provided that little bit of shock, but ultimately was not what I truly wanted at the end of the day. So I used Venus moving over my sun, but as part of learning about astrology, you learn through your own chart. And this was many years ago, but that really taught me a lot about looking at what else is happening in the sky. It's not just one thing, but you want to consider what else is happening, particularly in your chart. But in general, a strong Venus moving over your ascendant is really tends to be a really good time to do things like beautifying treatments. And also, I would say, if you've got, if you really want to transform your look, then if you're having Pluto or Mars making harmonious aspects to your ascendant, that can be really good as well. If you are doing something like liposuction, then you want to look at a strong, of course there's the beautifying aspect, but I would also say, think about the elimination element of Mars, maybe certainly Pluto, and Jupiter as well. Now, all else being equal, okay, so these are just some very general guidelines. If you are just looking at getting a whole new wardrobe or really changing up your look and wanting something you really love and that you're going to love for a long time, then it's a lot of the same stuff as if you were to have surgery. It's the Saturn tends to play a little bit more strongly, but still it is Venus. Anything you do to enjoy the earthly experience, including shopping, can go really well. Now, I would also say, like, one thing I have found with Venus retrograde is it does tend to work with like getting really great deals, really great bargains, going back and having another look. If you went to one place and you thought, oh, they don't have clothes I like at all, I don't really like that place. But then you stop in, you might end up getting like amazing things and leaving with a whole bag of stuff, and you go in thinking you're just going to get one thing and you come out with 20. Things like that can happen for the price of one. Stuff like that can happen with Venus retrograde as well. So it can restore the love and joy of beauty where it is that you need it. It can help you to take another look at the options available to you where it comes to things like enjoying your look and your presence. And Venus retrograde can also be really good for connecting with what really matters and keeping it in its right place. So especially where it is that you don't want to get caught up with the superficial, you don't want to feel like the look is all there is, but to understand that the look is play. It is playing with the illusion and enjoying the illusion while recognizing it is an illusion is a really good way, and one really good way to use Venus retrograde season to your beautifying advantage. Thank you so much for watching. Check out my Venus retrograde special that I recently did, looking at all the good ways to use this Venus retrograde season in 2017 and future Venus retrogrades as well. And it'll be a great, great Venus retrograde season. Enjoy.